In this week's IPL Roundup on Complete Cricket podcast, we're looking at the IPL table, examining the highlights of the week, including Pat Cummins' record matching 50 off 14 balls, and the English players' performance in the IPL this week. We'll also predict the results of fixtures next week. If you love the IPL as much as we do, please like, subscribe, and share with anyone you know who loves cricket. Without further ado, let's get started. Let's start by looking at the IPL table. It's pretty interesting. Last week was also quite strange, but this week it sort of started to balance off a bit more, with teams not there are only one unbeaten team so far, but there are two teams who've lost all their matches. So at the top three, we've got KKR, who've won three, lost one on 6 points. Gujarat Titans won three and lost zero. They're the only unbeaten team. They're on 6 points. And RCB, who are on 6 points as well, for 3 matches won, 1 lost, and Lucknow Super Giants 3 matches won, 1 lost on 6 points. So the top four have all got 6 points, and then in our bottom four we've got Delhi Capitals played 3, they won 1, lost 2 on 2 points. Sunrisers Hyderabad, who actually lost all their matches until yesterday, where they beat CSK. They won 1, lost 2. And Mumbai Indians and CSK both bottom. Mumbai 9th, CSK 10th. Both have lost all first 4 of their matches. So initially, the main shot for me is just seeing Mumbai Indians and CSK both at the bottom of the table, having lost all 4 of their matches. Zaid, let's start with CSK. What do you think is the main reason they've lost all 4 of their matches?
Yeah, I just feel it's like really their batting. Like if we look at that team, there's nothing really wrong with their team. They've got Robin Uthapar and Gaik at the top, Mohan Ali and Bhatti Wright. It's quite a strong team. But the problem is some of their players, I just feel they're out of form at the same time. Someone like Gaikwad last year, he did really well, but currently he's just not been able to get enough runs, and he's just out of form, which is okay. It happens. But the issue is that Rayudu, he's scored some runs, but it's not been a very free flow. His innings haven't been really free flowed, and he's really struggled to get his run. So I think these two players are kind of out of form at the moment. And when you have players that are out of form at the same time in a playing 11, that's not good, because then it's just difficult to work with those players. And the other thing with CSK, I think the squad is like, I looked through their squad, there's a lot of players that we haven't really heard of. And there's only so many players you can choose from. Like yesterday's team, the only other players that you can really think of is like Theekshana or Dwayne Pretorius. Other than that, it's just players that are young and coming through the ranks, which maybe can't really get into the main 11, but they're just learning. And that's the issue. When you have players out of form, then you can't get new players in because they're just not experienced enough. And that's just something that CSK need to look at. And they just really need to get a move on here, because they've lost all 4. It's and Mumbai as well. Both these teams need to get a move on. They need to find something that works. And for me, I think CSK need to do something with their batting.
Yeah, with CSK, I think there were 2 matches I would say that they should have won. One is the match against Lucknow Super Giants, where they scored like more than 200. That should have just been an easy win. Obviously, even to forget about the pitch and due and things like that. It's just the clinical execution is something that someone who's going to try and win the IPL title needs to have, like a team. They need to be able to execute their plans clearly. They need to be able to finish off matches, and CSK didn't do that. And against Sunrisers, Sunrisers are also a very weak team and lacking confidence. So CSK could have used that as an opportunity to get themselves out of the bottom 2 and propel themselves up the table. But again, their batting faltered. They scored an under par total, and Sunrisers actually chased it down pretty simply. In terms of Mumbai Indians, for me, it's pretty opposite to CSK in a way. I'd say it's the issue with the players that they picked. In the auction, I was a bit worried because they had a lot of money left and they needed a lot of players towards the end. And they've sort of it seems like they've hoovered up all not unwanted. That's not very fair on the players, but I'd just say they've hoovered up all the lower talent players, because a lot of if you look at the IPL lineup of Mumbai 2 seasons ago, where they won, and it's full of top quality players from the top order batting, with obviously homegrown Indian players as well, but top order good batters, people like Rohit, Ishan Kishan, Surya Kumar Yadav. And then you've got middle order is also strong with Kieran Pollard, Hardik Pandya, and then you've got the bowling attack with Trent Bolt, Jasprit Bumrah. It was pretty much a perfect team, had everything you need. Now it's just they've literally just hoovered up like players who no one's heard of, players that don't have the quality that Mumbai have had recently, and it's shown because no matter how how well they bowl, or if they bowl well, they can't bat well. If they bat well, they can't bowl well, just because they haven't got the quality in their team, and that's something that is, I think it's the Mumbai the representatives of Mumbai in the auction that have really made the mistake, because they haven't got the quality that they need, that teams like Lucknow Super Giants, teams like Rajasthan Royals have got at the top of the table. And then let's actually go on to the top of the table, just to discuss clearly more why these teams aren't in the top of the table. So I think it's a surprise. KKR at the top. I haven't seen them at the top for a while, to be fair. They're normally like sort of mid-table team. Gujarat Titans and Lucknow Super Giants are two new teams. Obviously they did get to pick 3 players at the start from other clubs, and they made use of their picks quite well. Gujarat Titans, they have Hardik Pandya. They've got I think they have. Do they have Rashid Khan, or is that Lucknow Super Giants? One of the 2 new teams has Rashid Khan. But yeah, both teams are looking really well. And what do you think makes them so successful, Zaid? Why do you think they're the Gujarat Titans and Lucknow Super Giants, 2 new teams who haven't had any experience in the IPL, have suddenly come and they're in the top 4?
I think it's like a lot of the experience that they have. As you mentioned, they have Hardik Pandya, who's been playing for a lot of time now, and he used to be in Mumbai, and he used to bat a bit lower down the order, but now he's got this new role of batting in the 4, and he's been doing pretty well at it. And I just think some of the players that they've got, Lucknow, for example, you've got KL Rahul and Quinton de Kock at the top, 2 fabulous players, world-class players. So I just think it's more the experience that they've got, that something like, as you mentioned, Mumbai, they've just got some players that no one's really heard of. And I don't think it's really a talent problem. It's just more of an experience problem. There's just not experience enough anymore. And I think these teams at the top, KKR, Gujarat Titans, RCB, and Lucknow, they all have quite a lot of experience. If we look at RCB, you've got Virat Kohli, Faf du Plessis, and it's just with experience, you get more of cricket. If you get players that have been playing for a while, especially players that have played the IPL for so long, when you play the IPL, you play against the world-class players. It was almost like an international tournament. It's just the quality of cricket is so good, and it's just Gujarat Titans and Lucknow. They did the auction really well. I think they chose wisely of their players. You need players that are coming through the ranks and are young, but you also need the players to help them. And I think they've got a correct balance with experienced players and inexperienced young talent, which is really what you need in the IPL.
Yeah, the top 4 teams, and you can even include Rajasthan, who are at 5th, all have made their squads better after the mega auction compared to last year's squad. Whereas the bottom teams have lost key players. Like DC, for example, lost Rabada, who's probably one of the most valuable assets in the entire IPL. They lost a lot of their batting order, and they're looking really weak. Sunrisers generally just haven't improved at all. They've pretty much stayed lower down at the table. They haven't really got these key players. They did lose Rashid Khan, so that in itself just made them a lot weaker. And Mumbai and CSK also haven't really become any better. Mumbai and CSK do have a bit of promise in the future, I'd say, because they got these players on like more than 1-year contracts. So maybe if these players do, this is like a lot of their players are new. So if they use this season to get more experience, next season they could become better. But it doesn't have that immediate impact where that team in the top 4, their signings have had. So I think that's just a big difference between the two, between the top 4 and the bottom 4. It's just the experience levels, and also the talent wise. Do they have talent who can perform every day in, day out, or they have talents who can occasionally perform and lack consistency? Anyway, I think we should be able to highlights of the week. So, as I mentioned in the introduction, Pat Cummins versus Mumbai Indians hit a 50 or 14 balls. That's matching the IPL record. Honestly, there was a lot of social media, hype about it. Oh my God, he hit 50 or 14 balls. But for any KKR fan, you've got to realize that Pat Cummins isn't going to come and do this every day. This is not going to be he's not a batter. You can sort of call him an all-rounder, but he's known for his bowling. He can swing the bat a little bit. And honestly, for me, I wasn't exactly supremely impressed with this innings. How did you feel about this innings, Zaid? Were you impressed with it? Do you think it was some extraordinary innings, or do you think there's a bit more to it than that?
Well, I think it was a pretty good innings. He middled the bat quite well. He got some pretty good power. But I also think it was just some bad bowling as well. I think some bowlers, I think I remember one bowler, can't remember who bowled it, but it was down the leg side and in the slot, and he just literally flicked it for six, which is quite easy for a lot of batsmen. It's just like maybe a little bit of pressure in that game for the opposition. Just think Pat Cummins, it was a really good innings, but it was just like he was kind of gifted that innings. He just they get. I think it was just the bowlers, they gave him the correct delivery to be able to play those shots. Everything was in the slot, and you can just absolutely kill everything, which was really what he did. So I think it was a good innings, but it was just something like he got everything he needed, and he just cashed in.
Yeah, honestly, I would say that he middled the bat 3 or 4 times probably, and the rest I'd say is a lot of. There were a few edges and stuff. Like it wasn't your classical, coming in proper clean innings. Like I wouldn't rate this very highly. I would, just because it's 14 balls. It's obviously incredible, and it really boosted KKR's net run rate as well. But it was not your it's just not up the standard, I would say. Like I'm not too impressed. Nevertheless, it was a good innings, and I think for me as a Mumbai Indian fan, I think it really sums up Mumbai Indians IPL so far, because they could have won that match and they just lost complete control. And I think the control that they've shown over the last 4 seasons on a match, the amount of dominance that they've had to stop other teams from scoring, to take wickets regularly, to put pressure back on the team. They just don't have the players who can give that pressure anymore and can supply that on the opponent team. So when they're bowling, it's not really, oh my God, oh, we've got to start scoring, otherwise we're going to get dotted up, and otherwise Mumbai are going to win. It's more like, okay, let's just take our time slowly at the start, then just accelerate, because we know Mumbai aren't going to do anything about it. So I think just the key loss of players has really made them a lot weaker. I think that innings really sums up Mumbai's IPL so far. They've just lack of control. You're completely right. There was a lot of balls that were gifted, a lot of balls that were just straight to Pat Cummins either the leg side or in the slot. A lot of them in the slot, and it just shows a lack of experience and just a lack of control over the innings itself. But yeah, from Mumbai, sorry. Another key highlight for me personally was Liam Livingstone. We've seen him for Birmingham Phoenix. We've seen him in playing for England. I think 42 ball 100 against Pakistan or something like that. We've seen him fire. We haven't really seen him very much in the IPL, but this IPL he's really lit it up. I think he scored 160 runs so far, and he scored an amazing 50. And he has been scoring. He's just been scoring free for all. I think his strike rate so far is 190 in total. That's just incredible. So far 4 matches played, he's scored 160 runs. It's not just he's played 1 match and he's hit 20 off 10. He's actually played quite a few balls and quite a few runs, and he's got such a high strike rate. What makes Liam Livingstone so special, do you think? Why can he score this many runs? How can he score this quickly? And how does he score sixes with such ease?
I just think it's his fearless nature. A lot of batsmen, maybe an opening batsman, they're a bit more cautious when they come out to bat, and they try and just get into the innings and then score runs later on. But Liam Livingstone comes in and goes for it straight away, which is very good in T20 cricket, to have that fearless nature. You need to be prepared to get out. It happens. Someone like Liam Livingstone, he's played some great innings, but he's got out pretty quickly as well before. And that's fine, as long as he's delivering those great innings later on. He's scored 50s this season already, which is exactly what you want. So I just think it's his fearless nature that makes him special. I think it's almost like a Dawid Malan that we saw back in 2017. I think it was the South Africa series when he first came in. Dawid Malan, he completely killed it. He scored 70 odd in his first ever game for England. It was just he's kind of doing that. Liam Livingstone, he's been around for a while, but he hasn't played England matches for that long now, and he will continue. And I think he'd be a great T20 player. And it's just really, for me, it's that fearless nature to not to be scared to play those big shots and play them with technique, and not exactly technique, but not over hitting it. I just think he's not scared to get out, but he doesn't try and absolutely whack the ball. He plays it. He hits the ball hard, but he plays it with some sort of technique. He doesn't overhit the ball. So I just think it's his fearless nature that makes him so special.
Yeah, no, I agree. But sort of technically, what would you say? So we've talked about people always talk about Josh Buttler and his hands through the ball. And in terms of Liam Livingstone, what do you think technically makes him such a powerful striker with the ball? Is there a specific element that you say that just puts him in a separate category to the rest that makes him like a lot better than everyone else.
Someone like Kieran Pollard or Hardik Pandya, they just come in and use their sheer power that they have. Kieran Pollard, he's got a great build, and he just comes in and whacks the ball with absolutely no technique. Liam Livingstone, I think he's kind of in the middle between Josh Butler and someone like Kieran Pollard. He hits the ball hard, but he doesn't hit it. He doesn't. I don't think he has that sort of build like Kieran Pollard. So he's not able to hit the ball that hard. He's not able to play the ball with no technique. So I think we don't really see him play like cover drives very often, or a lovely straight drive down for four. We see him play it much harder, but he doesn't overhit the ball, which I mentioned before. Which I just think that's what makes him so good. He's able to play the ball hard, but not. He doesn't need to. He just doesn't. He doesn't need to hit the ball too hard. He middles about straight away, which is really what makes him so special. I think.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I also think it's his bat speed. It's excuse me. His bat speed is just crazy. It's just he goes through the ball like whenever he goes, even if he doesn't go completely cleanly through the ball, the speed that he's going with his bat means that the ball's still going to fly close to the boundary. And yeah, I agree with the comparison to Kieran Pollard, and the fact that Kieran Pollard I saw with Mumbai towards the end of Mumbai's innings. I think it was against RCB. I think he was just Kieran Pollard, just because of his bat speed and his strength, just swings his bat at the ball, and even if it edges it, it will just go to any boundary for 4 or 6. So it's not really that. It's more control than that. But nevertheless, his bat speed's impressive, and he hits the ball incredibly hard. So I think Liam Livingstone's got he's had a good IPL so far. If he can continue this, he can really propel himself on the international stage. He's done that for England, and he's done that in England as well. But we need to. I think it's a good chance for him to push his career into a whole other level. I think the IPL's got a lot of visibility, and it's very good. Another pretty stunning innings was Rahul Tewatia. 12 of 2 needed, and Rahul Tewatia delivered with 2 consecutive sixes to win. I'm not sure what team they're playing against, but do you remember what team they're playing against?
I don't know.
I think it was no, it was Punjab Kings. Yeah, it was Gujarat Titans versus Punjab Kings. So Gujarat Titans won their first 2 matches in order to keep their winning streak. They needed 12 off 2. Rahul Tewatia smashed 2 sixes in a row and delivered, and it was crazy because Rahul Tewatia has sort of been an on and off player throughout the last few years. He's known for his finishing, but it's not been a consistent. He's not like your classic finisher. So it's another it's reminders of his previous talents that years before in the IPL, and he has played for India recently as well. But what do you feel about Rahul Tewatia? Do you think he's good enough to cement his place in the India squad, or do you think he's just still more like a bit part player who can turn up occasionally?
I just think he's sort of a player that turns up occasionally, because we've seen him I just think that sort of player that will stay quiet for the whole IPL, and then that just one innings he'll just come in and finish the game, which is what you want. But you don't want him to stay quiet. You want him to do that more often. And there's no point having a player who just wins you the game once in 14 games. If they qualify, they'll play even more. So you might as well just have someone who can consistently do it. So Rahul Tewatia needs to work on being able to do that consistently, the finishing role. I don't think his bowling is up to the marks. I just think he needs to work on his batting even more. And just he's done it. We saw him last year as well. He one innings, but we never saw him again. He was just one or 2 innings of the whole season, which is quite a long season. It's 2 months, which is a huge season. And it's just he does it once and he just won't really come back again. Maybe he'll do it one more time, which is not ideal. He's a great batsman. He's a great finisher, but I think he just needs to do it. He needs to be able to. He needs to work on just doing it, being able to finish a game off even more, more often. Like someone like Dinesh Karthik we've seen so far. He finished the game twice or 3 times in just the 4 games, and that's the sort of player that I'd rather have rather than someone like Rahul Tewatia who'll just do 12 of 2. So I just think he needs to work on being able to finish the game more often.
Yeah, One thing I want to say, it was a very good, innings. Of course, they won without him. They wouldn't have won the match realistically. But honestly, I was looking at the highlights as well, and he was getting slogged in when he was bowling. His bowling isn't up to the standard. I think you're completely right. His role isn't very clear in a team. He can bowl spin. He can hit the ball a long way. But is he an all-rounder who's going to be bowling 4 overs in a match and then batting at like 6-7, or is he all-rounder that bats at bats a bit higher, maybe 5-6, or even 6-7, and bowls like 1 over occasionally if they need to fill up the overs? Like, it's not really clear his role. So if he could become, obviously all rounders are good at both batting and bowling, but there's always normally a strength in one. There's something that they're special at, or you do both really well. Like, with Tuati, I think he needs to improve both considerably to cement the space in the Indian team, because India haven't really had spin bowling all rounder. I wouldn't say it's not really in the fit of the Indian team. Like, I don't think if you're gonna get all rounder, I think you want a pace bowling all rounder for India's international team, someone like Hardik Pandya, Shivam Dube. But anyway, it was still it was an amazing innings, and it was incredibly a lot of pressure on him pretty much. 12 off 2. It's just like most people would have written him off, said it was unlikely. The last in our highlights, I'd say the most important match for me this week was 100% Sunrisers Hyderabad versus Chennai Super Kings yesterday, considering it was a match that against two teams who lost all their matches so far. Both of them needed a win to kickstart their IPL campaign, and honestly, it was a bit of a disappointment. Most people would have been expecting CSK to win this, I think, and Sunrisers did win the match pretty comfortably. Today, if you could pinpoint two specific things that you'd say that made CSK lose this match, what would you say they are?
For me, as I mentioned before, it's got to be Chennai's batting, and as I've said, they're just a bit fragile at the moment, and some of their players are just out of form. The other thing, I think Sunrisers, their bowling looks pretty impressive at the moment. Like, it's not amazing, but it's looking pretty good. They've got players like Bhubaneswar Kumar at the top. You've got Natarajan, who used to be called the King of Yorkers at one point. You've got the pace of Umran Malik, who's literally going to win that the fastest ball of the match. He's going to win that every match, really. And I think they've got some good bowlers, and they've got a variety of bowlers. So I think that's a very good sign for Sunrisers. But it's just, I think their batting looks a bit fragile, Sunrisers. But I just think Chennai, I don't know what's going on with them. They just really need to do something with their batting, and it's just they need to be able to face bowling attacks that have a variety of bowlers like Sunrisers. They've got the swing of Bhubaneswar Kumar, and then they've got some spin with Washington Sundar, Yorkers with Natarajan, and pace with Umar Malik, which is a great variety of bowling options. And I think Sunrisers have done well to have that option. That's something to think about the auction as well. When CSK look at the auction again next year or coming years, when they look at that again, they want to have maybe a more variety of bowling options, because they don't really have that. I don't think they just have the experience of Dwayne Bravo, Chris Jordan. He hasn't really looked very good at the moment. You've got Mukesh Chowdhury, who's just very inexperienced player. He's coming up, but he's still very inexperienced. And they don't really have any really good spin option. Jadeja will just come in, and same with Moeen Ali. So they just need to get a variety of bowling options as well, I think, for Chennai.
Yeah, none of their bowling options are really up to that standard. You'd say, like, for example, none of their bowling options, well, last season, their bowling options were there. They're like, I think Shardul Thakur, Deepak Chahar is a really good bowler. Like, I'm a big fan of him. And they had options. They had, if you would have put players into brackets at the top level of bowlers, they have no one who's really at that level at the moment. Chris Jordan, towards the end of last year as well, with the T20s, he wasn't really looking too good. He's been really expensive, the death overs. He's known for his death over bowling, but he's not been doing that to his like normal standard. So I think he's starting to his abilities sort of starting to dwindle a little bit. And I think he's like 34 or something. So he's not the start of his career 100%. I would say also CSK's bowling. It's pretty toothless, to be fair. Sunrisers bowling, as you said, they're not exactly. It's not stunning. Like, players like Umran Malik, yeah, he bowls extremely fast, but he's so expensive. Like, he lets in so many runs every single innings. Like, I haven't seen him ever bowl a controlled spell. And obviously he's pretty new to the IPL, but if you're bowling 150 kilometers an hour, there's no point bowling 150 kilometers an hour and getting hit for six. You should be able to bowl 150 kilometers an hour, but keep the run rates lower. As a fast bowler, especially fast bowler, your economy tends to be slightly higher. But players like Anrik Nortje have shown that, he's a very fast bowler as well, but his economy is generally pretty controlled. Similar with Rabada as well. So if they could get a player like Rabada or Nortje, or even Lockie Ferguson, who are all three really fast bowlers, instead of Umran Malik, just to give that pace, I think Sunrisers could like make that level and step up into. They seem to be like a middle of the table team, and if they want to challenge for top four, they still got to refine that bowling attack. But yeah, Natarajan, is really is doing really well. So was Bhuvneshwar Kumar. If they had kept Rashid Khan, I think they would have been a lot higher up the table. Would you not agree? Do you think Rashid Khan was like instrumental for them? Without them, they would have without Rashid Khan, they would have really suffered last season, like even more than they did. Rashid Khan is like Gujarat. I think he plays for Gujarat Titans now, doesn't he? Or one of the two new teams. So yeah, all in all, I think that the Sunrisers, CSK just didn't make use of that opportunity. I think we'll go on to two young Indian talents who I would picked as like who have stood out for us this week, and they are Shubman Gill and Prithvi Shaw. So a lot of reviewers would have heard them before because they've been around the international setup for a while in India. So Shubman Gill has been played Test cricket recently for India. Opened alongside Rohit Sharma for a while. I think he was dropped just because of poor performances, but he did score a few 50s. He's not your like typical 50 off 150 balls type opener. He's more like David Warner, who's like 50 off 80, 50 off 90, and he's got his shots. And then Prithvi Shaw as well. At one point, when even a few years ago, it was called the future Sachin Tendulkar, and he's pretty young. I think he's like 24. I'm not sure, but these are two talents. Both of them have done well this week. Shubman Gill 96 or 59, and there was another big innings before that. I think last week. Prithvi Shaw 61 of 34. Zaid, let's start with Shubman Gill. What do you think in terms of Shubman Gill? How do you think he is as a batter? Do you think is he going to have a lot of success as he grows into his career playing for India?
Yeah, definitely. Like we talked about in the last couple of weeks, we talked about like his consistency needs to improve, and I think his consistency has improved a little bit. Like last week he scored I think 80 or something. Now he scored 96, which is excellent. So I think his consistency has improved a bit more now, which is what you want, and that's what you want if you want to play international cricket. There's no point just having the talent. You need to be able to do that at the top stage and be able to do that consistently. There's no like someone like Virat Kohli. He's done it for many years now. He's been he plays one good innings, he'll do it again, and that's what you want. Shubman Gill, there was at one point he was doing one good innings and coming off, getting out for a low score in the next one, and then doing another good innings, and that's not really what you want. And now he scored two big innings, and that'll give him a lot of confidence going into the next few matches in the IPL, going into when he goes back to India, plays some matches for India. That'll be big confidence booster. So he's got an excellent future. He's got so much potential. And I think just with these two big innings, I think that'll kickstart his career even further. And I think he's consistently improved, which is exactly what you want in your team. So I think he's going to do very well.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. I think he has the right style of batting to play all three formats if he wanted to. And I think he could just be an all-round player, but he's really got to just iron out like getting out cheaply, because realistically, it's okay if you get out cheaply to international batsmen on the international stage. Occasionally, all batsmen do that. People like Virat Kohli is still in the team, though he's not been the best in form in all three formats. But I just think that as long as you can show you can do it well on a domestic circuit in place like the IPL, then you're perfect. I think it just gives him that platform to really explode. How about Prithvi Shaw? He's been hyped up. He was hyped up a lot recently over the last few years, but realistically, he hasn't really returned that result. He hasn't done too well in the IPL really, and I'm not sure if he's played for India. I think he probably has played for India a few times, but it's not been up to the standards that everyone was expecting. So, what do you think about Prithvi Shaw? What do you think his future in international cricket is like?
It's an interesting one. Like as you said recently, a few years ago, it's called Future Sachin Tendulkar. I'm not sure that you can really say that currently. Obviously he scored 61 of 34 excellent innings, but I haven't. That's really one once in a while innings. I haven't seen him do that for a while now, and which is concerning. But it's okay. He's still very young. I still think he's got excellent potential, but he just similar with Shubman Gill, he needs to get that consistency higher. He's got all the talent needed, but he needs more consistency. He needs to be able to continue doing something that he's continue getting a high innings in more matches. And sometimes what you get is like with the top players, they'll score a big innings, maybe like an 80 or 90 in a T20 match. But then in the next match, they're struggling, but they might still score like a 20 or 30, which is still good. Like which is much better than scoring an excellent 90 or 60 and getting out for zero. And I think the best international players, they do that. They score a high innings, but then when they're struggling, they realize they're not going to score very high innings. They work with that and still get up to decent 20 or 30, which is something Prithvi Shaw I think needs to look at. Maybe if he doesn't, that'll gain with experience. I think when he gets older, when he gets even more experience, he'll be able to find that rhythm. And when he does realize he's doing really well, he can continue that form in that innings and get up to a big score of 70 or 80. And when you realize beginning in the innings when maybe the pitch isn't good or he's just struggling, he's just not informed that innings, maybe just play a bit more cautiously, but still get to a decent 20 or 30. Now that could change depending on the situation of the game. Maybe if you need to score big runs, and that's okay. But apart from that, I just think he needs to be able to just gain that consistency and be able to still score decent runs, even if it's less, but decent runs when he's struggling.
Yeah, no, I agree. Just to sum up talking about the two Indian talents that we've seen. If you had one top order spot in the India lineup, would you pick Shubman Gill or Prithvi Shaw to fill that spot?
Yeah, I would pick Shubman Gill, especially in the current situation. I think he's been doing a little bit better than Prithvi Shaw. I just think the way he's batting, the more consistency he's shown, the big runs. I just think Shubman Gill, I would choose him to be my opener.
Yep, I would also pick him. Even forgetting about because recently, I just say in general the range of shots that Shubman Gill has, ground shots, aerial shots, and the style of batting, I just like it. It's very appealing, and it's also the style of batting that if you could work on a little bit more, that could be really fruitful for India. So I think he would be my pick. Anyway, let's move on to talk about the English cohort in the IPL and their performances. So we've had some big performances from English players. So Zayn, I'll say each player. We'll give them a rating out of 10 for this week's performances for them and just discuss why quickly. So we'll start with Moeen Ali, just he was the first one that popped into my mind. So I would rate him, I think I'd rate 8 out of 10 this week. Yeah, I think 8 out of 10 is fair. His performances this week, what would you rate him, Zaid?
Yeah, I'd probably give him a 7. Like his bowling hasn't really been too good at the moment. He's been getting through the overs quickly, which I guess that's what you want to do in the middle when you're a spinner, but he hasn't picked up wickets. He's been a little bit expensive. His batting's look good, which is why I've given him a 7. I think his batting's looking good, but he just needs a bit more consistency. So I'm giving him a 7.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty fair. Timar Mills, I'd say a 7 for him, purely based on he's taken a few wickets. We've seen his slow balls to good effect, and he's actually done pretty decently in the IPL, but he hasn't lit it up. Like he wouldn't be your first pick bowler in a team, but I think he's done his role decently well. How about you? What would you say out of 10?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I would go with a 7. I think he's not. I'm a fan of him. I think I like his left arm quick sort of bowling, and he picks up wickets. But he's a little bit expensive at times, which is something to cut down. But I think he's looking good. I'll give him a 7.
See, he's one of those bowlers that wouldn't give Mumbai the control that they want. He will give them wickets, and well, at points he can give control, but towards the death overs, I think he could be effective at certain points, but he's not consistent enough for the four. So if he does 2 overs in the death overs, he would those 2 overs he won't go for like 10 runs. You might go for one over, he might go for like 5 runs, and the second over he might go for like 15, 20 runs. But anyway, Liam Livingston, yeah, 9 out of 10 for me. Just all round brilliant performances. His leg spin's been expensive, but nevertheless, I think he has actually taken wickets. And his role isn't really a bowler. He can just bowl leg spin, and it's effective because leg spin and off spin, because he can make the ball, he can turn the ball away from the batter, which is good in T20 because obviously it's harder to swing at if it's going away from you, and it means that edges are more likely, for example, or it was spoon up and go up into the air for catches. So yeah, Liam Livingston, 9 out of 10 for me. What do you think, Zaid?
Yeah, I'm agree with you with that. 9 out of 10, he's done pretty well so far with batting. Bowling's looking okay, but batting is the main thing really. That's probably the main role. He can bowl a bit when it's needed, but he can. I think his main talent is batting, and he's shown that. He scored some big runs, and I think he'll continue to do that. And that's his role. So I'm giving him 9 out of 10.
Cool. Johnny Bairstow, what would you rate Johnny Bairstow's performances this week?
Yeah, so that's a difficult one. I think he hasn't played enough yet. I think he just recently came in. I'll probably give him a 6 because I'm not really sure how he's done. I think he's a great player, but I just think he hasn't done so well so far. He'll have some performances, but just not up to the mark so far.
Yeah, with Johnny Bairstow, I'm a little bit confused why he's not playing regularly. Like, he should be in the team. I don't understand. If you put Liam Livingston in your team, put Johnny Bairstow as well. If you give him that matches, I think he'll really perform. Like, he can easily score 300 runs in IPL season. But like last season, he scored 280 runs in only 9 matches. So he did really well. So I think that I think they just need to give him the more opportunity. So I put him as a 5 just purely because he played. I think he's played 2 matches and he didn't score very in either. He was looking really good, and then he just edged it to like he just tried to swing too hard at a ball. But anyway, I think 5 is fair for him now. Just how he's performing now. But hopefully, if he plays for Punjab, the Punjab Kings. So if they give him some opportunity, then I think he will do better. Josh Butler. This week's performances, I'd say between 8 and 9. So I think did he hit that like century was last week? I'm pretty sure. I think he did score quite some runs this week, but I'd say let's just keep it at 8. Just because he's been scoring, he just needs to keep it up. I wouldn't say it's because he scored a century last week. It's not exactly an improvement as such. It's just keeping on that track. So Josh Butler just needs to keep on going. I think 8's fair rating. What would you rate his performances this week?
I agree with you. I'd go with an 8 as well. He's looking good. That 100 he scored, excellent. But if he can do that and again, that'll be even better. But I just think he needs to continue that consistency even more. He's been scoring runs. He's an excellent player. But for this week, I'll give him an 8.
Yeah. David Willey, what would you rate him and his performances this week in the IPL?
Yeah, he's looked quite promising actually. He's looking like in terms of batting actually, he's looked pretty okay. And for RCB, he's been batting I think like 6 or something, which is not really bad for England. But for me, I'd give him an 8 as well. I think his bowling's looked pretty good. And yeah, he's sort of been a bit of an unlucky player. I think he was left out in the 2019 World Cup. I don't think he deserved to be left out, but I just think there was nothing that England could do. I just think he's a bit of an unlucky player. His career has got a bit derailed really, but it's not really his fault. But for this week, I'm giving him an 8 because I just think his bowling do pretty well.
Yeah, I'd probably give him a 6. I think because just purely because honestly, if there wasn't 10 teams and there was 8 teams, I don't think he would have been picked in the auction. Like realistically, like he's not really a consistent player in the England team. And if I don't really feel like his bowling's been okay. His batting, he's a pinch hitter already. He's been putting like all places in the order. He can bat he bats at 10 sometimes, but he can also bat at 4 for RCB. So I'm just really he's sort of like a player who could do a little bit of everything. His bowling's been pretty impressive. So I would have, if it was just his bowling, I would have probably given him a 7. But I don't think he's up to that level, especially his batting hasn't been that impressive either. So honestly, just because the fact that I don't really feel like he's up to that. His talent level isn't there to for the IPL standard. Honestly, that's just what I think. But nevertheless, if he could do some solid bowling and batting performances, he can prove everyone wrong. You know, he can show that he is ready. But he's not exactly breaking into the England. He's not your first bowler that you put in the England team sheet. You know, you've got people that's like T.R. Mills, Jofra Archer, Chris Jordan, for example. Not really Dave Willey. But yeah, I think that's all the IPL performances. I think we'll do a quick predictions of next week's matches. So let's just start with KKR versus DC. Well, Miami next week, I'm also including today, which is Sunday the 10th. KKR versus DC. Zaid, who do you think's going to win?
I think to me KKR, they're doing pretty well. I think DC, they just need to do a little bit better. So I'm good KKR.
Yep, I think KKR. Rajasthan Royals, Lucknow Super Giants. I think Lucknow Super Giants. Who do you think?
Yeah, for me, saying Lucknow, it's going to be an interesting game. Yeah, I would go Lucknow, just slightly.
Yeah, I think if Josh Butler can score some runs, Lucknow will be really under pressure. Nevertheless, they do have a really good top order. You know, they've got Quinton de Kock, they've got KR Rahul, both can score runs, and they just have depth. And they also have finishers like Badoni, who showed his finishing skills a couple of matches ago. Sunrisers, Hyderabad versus Gujarat Titans. I think that's Gujarat Titans. Like, you could say that there could be an argument, Sunrisers with the momentum they've got try and push Gujarat Titans, but I think Gujarat Titans have the quality to beat them. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I would go Gujarat Titans. I mean, they've won 3 out of 3. SRH, they've struggled a little bit. They're looking pretty decent, but yeah, I would go Gujarat Titans. They're just looking like a very, very solid team. They've got all bases covered.
Yeah. So next is CSK versus RCB. I know a lot of CSK fans, we obviously want CSK to win, but I think realistically RCB are going to win. CSK, this is a need to win match for CSK. Ravindra Jadeja's captaincy has not gone very well. There have been some questionable decisions on his captaincy in terms of when he's bowling players like Shivam Dube, for example. We did mention that I think last episode, but not even that. It's just that the players is just not good enough. But it's not really much Ravindra Jadeja can do. But I still think RCB are going to win. Who do you think's going to win?
Yeah, definitely. I think RCB, they're looking pretty good. Faf Duplessis, they kind of stole from CSK. But CSK, they're just not looking very good. It's a must-win game for them, but realistically, it's just going to be RCB, I think.
Next one for me is interesting. Mumbai Indians versus Punjab Kings. Honestly, I think Mumbai Indians is going to break their losing streak and Mumbai Indians is going to win. But this is pretty much could go either way, I think. But I'm betting on Mumbai Indians to win. Who do you think is going to win?
Yeah, I'm actually going with Punjab Kings. I think Mumbai Indians, they're just looking really light this year, like we've talked about before. Their bowling is just not looking very good. I think Punjab Kings can cash in on that, then they're definitely going to be in a very strong chance to win. So I'm going with Punjab Kings.
Yeah, next Thursday we've got Rajasthan Royals versus Gujarat Titans. Also a very interesting match. 4th and 5th place currently playing against each other. I think Rajasthan Royals is going to win. Based on Josh Butler, basically. Josh Butler going to score some, if he scores runs, and just generally, their bowling attack's pretty good as well. So, Rajasthan Royals for me would be the winning team. Who do you think's going to win this match?
It's going to be Gujarat Titans, actually, because I just think it was like Josh Butler. He's kind of the only batsman that's done much. Like, there have been other batsmen around him, but haven't been too much. So, if Gujarat Titans can just get Josh Butler out, it's almost like Josh Butler's going to decide the game, really. If he scores runs, then our Rajasthan Royals in a very good chance to win. If he doesn't score too many runs, the Gujarat Titans are looking very strong. So I think it's going to be Gujarat Titans.
Cool. On Friday, there is Sunrisers Hyderabad versus Kolkata Knight Riders. Yeah, that's KKR straight. But it sort of depends on whether they win the previous match that we talked about. But I think KKR should win that. If KKR want to win the IPL title game, they've got to really show that they can put away all these like lower in the table teams that are lacking confidence and not playing too well. If you struggle against these teams, then it's sort of like it questions your ability to win the title because you're not able to finish off these games. Who do you think's gonna win?
Yeah, for me, same KKR. Even if they lose the game before that, I just think KKR with the momentum they've got in the first 4 games and the players that they've got, the amount of talent they've got, the experience, everything. I just think KKR, they're just going to pull through with that game.
Next one on Saturday is Mumbai Indians versus Lucknow Super Giants. This is tough because Mumbai is a team that I support, but Lucknow is a team that I think is going to win the IPL. I think Lucknow are going to win. Well, for me, this is a bit dependent on whether Mumbai beat. I think it was. I'm not sure what team it was. It was if whether Mumbai beat Punjab Kings, but really, Lucknow Super Giants have more quality. It's just the truth, and yeah, there's not really much you can do about it. Now, Zayn, what do you think about Mumbai versus Lucknow?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Lucknow is just Mumbai. They're really struggling so far, and yeah, I just think Lucknow's going to win.
Cool. Last match for until next week. On the Saturday there's Delhi Capitals versus RCB. RCB are probably going to win this one. Just because they're generally a stronger team. DC have been really impacted by losses of key players such as Rabada, whereas RCB have kept the core shell and added to their team. So I think RCB are going to win. Who do you think is going to win, Zaid?
Yeah, I would have to agree with you with that. It's a difficult one. Like it's gonna be an interesting game. I think it's gonna be tight, but I think RCB will come through. Just the sort of players they've got. They've got at the top. They've got young Rat, who did pretty well yesterday, I think. And then you got Faf du Plessis, Virat Kohli, and Dinesh Karthik to finish the game off. And they recently haven't played a match, so I think they've got everything they need. I think Delhi Capitals, they've lost some players at games. It's just looking a bit wobbly for them. I just think RCB are going to come through.
Cool, yeah. That's it for our predictions. That's it for the entire episode. Thank you, Zaid. If you did enjoy this episode, please like, subscribe, and share. It really helps us. But yeah, until next week, thank you.